Bonjour. Today we meet for another lecture where we will learn how to use some expressions using the verb avoir. You'll see it is really very simple. Look at these pictures. The first shows someone who's very hungry. So she says, I'm hungry, or j'ai faim. J'ai faim. I'd like to repeat this. J'ai faim. J'ai faim simply means I am hungry. Would you like to say this with me? J'ai faim. Try and say it again. J'ai faim. Let's look at the second picture. She is looking at the table, obviously looking at food, and someone asks her, you are not hungry? Tu n'as pas faim? Tu n'as pas faim? You have already learnt tu. You've learnt how to ask questions with the intonation. And you've also learnt the negation. So you know that when you have to put a sentence in the negative form, all you need to do is find the verb, put na in front of the verb and pa behind the verb or after the verb. This sentence is in the negative form and all it means is you are not hungry. So, tu n'as pas faim? Tu n'as pas faim. Try and say this with me. Tu n'as pas faim? Don't forget the intonation at the end. Tu n'as pas faim? Say this with me now. Tu n'as pas faim? Okay, now let's try to say this a little faster. Tu n'as pas faim? Tu n'as pas faim? And say this a little faster. Tu n'as pas faim? Tu n'as pas faim? Tu n'as pas faim? Now say it. Tu n'as pas faim? Very good. Look at these pictures. In one, you see a man who is hungry. He's eating. So, il a faim. Il a faim. Can you repeat this? Il a faim. Il a faim. Now look at the next picture. You see this girl who doesn't look hungry at all. Elle n'a pas faim. Elle n'a pas faim. Elle n'a pas faim. Now try and say this with me. Elle n'a pas faim. Very good. One more time. Elle n'a pas faim. One last time. Elle n'a pas faim. I'm saying this a little fast. Try. Elle n'a pas faim. Elle n'a pas faim. Good. Now we come to two more pictures. You see children who are eating. What do they say? We are hungry. Nous avons faim. Nous avons faim. Try and say this. Nous avons faim. Nous avons faim. Now say this with me. Nous avons faim. Nous avons faim. Now we come to two young men. You can see in the picture. Don't seem to look hungry. Vous n'avez pas faim. Vous n'avez pas faim. Vous n'avez pas faim. If I said vous n'avez pas faim, it would have been a question. But this says vous n'avez pas faim. The intonation will tell you whether it's a question or not. So be careful in this case when you repeat with me. Don't put in any intonation at the end of the sentence. Try to say this along with me now. Vous n'avez pas faim. Vous n'avez pas faim. Now try and say this a little faster. Vous n'avez pas faim. Vous n'avez pas faim. Vous n'avez pas faim. Let's go now to a group of people who are feasting. They are hungry. So, ils ont faim. Ils ont faim. Ils ont faim. Say it along with me, please. Ils ont faim. Let's say it again. Ils ont faim. And if you look at the next picture, ils n'ont pas faim. There are two people who are not hungry, so they are not hungry. Ils n'ont pas faim. Ils n'ont pas faim. Now try and say this with me. Ils n'ont pas faim. Ils n'ont pas faim. Good. Now we come to the next expression, which is to be thirsty or avoir soif. Now you can see one person who's drinking. He says, I am thirsty. J'ai soif. J'ai soif. J'ai soif. Repeat with me and remember you must pronounce the F sound. So j'ai soif. Try it one more time. J'ai soif. Now in the second picture, you see a lady who's not touching her glass. Tu n'as pas soif? Tu n'as pas soif? You are not hungry. You are not thirsty. Tu n'as pas soif? You are not thirsty. Tu n'as pas soif. You are not thirsty. Try and say it with me now. Tu n'as pas soif. Tu n'as pas soif. Okay. Now we go to the next slide. Il a soif. He is thirsty. Il a soif. I'll repeat this. Il a soif. Il a soif. Try and say it with me. Il a soif. Il a soif. Il a soif. Good. You go to the next slide. Again, you see a lady who's not touching her glass. She is not thirsty. Elle n'a pas soif. Elle n'a pas soif. Elle n'a pas soif. Now please try and say it with me. Elle n'a pas soif. Now say it again. Elle n'a pas soif. Elle n'a pas soif. Good. You go to the next. You see a bunch of people who say, we are thirsty. Nous avons soif. Nous avons soif. Nous avons soif. Can you repeat this with me? Nous avons soif. One more time. Nous avons soif. Coming to the next picture, we find a bunch of people who don't seem to be thirsty. Vous n'avez pas soif? Vous n'avez pas soif? Now I'm going to say this slowly. Vous n'avez pas soif? Vous n'avez pas soif? Please repeat with me. Vous n'avez pas soif? One more time. Vous n'avez pas soif? Good. We come to the next. Ils ont soif. Ils ont soif. They are thirsty. As you can see, there are a group of people here who are drinking. Ils ont soif. They are thirsty. Ils ont soif. Ils ont soif. Please repeat with me. Ils ont soif. Please say it again. Ils ont soif. The next picture shows you two ladies who don't seem to be thirsty at all. Elles n'ont pas soif. Elles n'ont pas soif. Please repeat with me. Elles n'ont pas soif. Elles n'ont pas soif. Now let's try to say this a little faster. Elles n'ont pas soif. Elles n'ont pas soif. Very good. Let's come to the next. J'ai chaud. I'm feeling warm. The picture shows you a young man who's really feeling warm in hot weather. So, j'ai chaud. J'ai chaud. J'ai chaud. Now, can you repeat this? J'ai chaud. Please repeat it again. J'ai chaud. One last time. J'ai chaud. Coming to the next picture, you see a lady who seems to be wearing a slight jacket. You're not feeling cold. Tu n'as pas chaud. Tu n'as pas chaud. Tu n'as pas chaud. Now try and say this with me. Tu n'as pas chaud. Say it again. Tu n'as pas chaud. Now we're going to say it one last time, a little faster. Tu n'as pas chaud. Tu n'as pas chaud. Very good. Come to the next. Young man who's looking fairly warm. He's feeling hot. Il a chaud. He is hot. He is feeling hot. Il a chaud. He is feeling hot. Il a chaud. Il a chaud. Please say this with me. Il a chaud. One more time. Il a chaud. Coming to the next picture, we see a young lady who's wearing a sweater. Elle n'a pas chaud. Elle n'a pas chaud. Elle n'a pas chaud. Now please say this with me slowly. Elle n'a pas chaud. One more time. Elle n'a pas chaud. Elle n'a pas chaud. Elle n'a pas chaud. Very good. Come to the next. Bunch of people you can see in this picture who are in the sea. They say, we are feeling hot. Nous avons chaud. Nous avons chaud. Try and say this with me now. Nous avons chaud. The next one. You see a bunch of people who don't seem to be feeling hot at all. You're not feeling hot. Vous n'avez pas chaud. Vous n'avez pas chaud. I'm going to say this slowly. Vous n'avez pas chaud. Please try and say this along with me. Vous n'avez pas chaud. I'll repeat. Vous n'avez pas chaud. And a little faster. Vous n'avez pas chaud. Very good. Let's come to the next. Bunch of people who are looking like they're feeling hot. Ils ont chaud. They are feeling hot. Ils ont chaud. Ils ont chaud. Please say this with me. Ils ont chaud. Ils ont chaud. Very good. Now we come to the next slide. You see people here who are wearing jackets. Ils n'ont pas chaud. Ils n'ont pas chaud. Please say this with me. Ils n'ont pas chaud. This is in the negative form. Ils n'ont pas chaud. That's the reason you have ne and pas. In the middle, you have the verb. So, ils n'ont pas chaud. Please say this with me. Ils n'ont pas chaud. One more time. Ils n'ont pas chaud. Now, let's try to say this a little faster. Ils n'ont pas chaud. Ils n'ont pas chaud. Good. We come to the next expression. To feel cold is avoir froid. So, j'ai froid. This lady is saying that. J'ai froid. J'ai froid. I am cold. J'ai froid. Now, please say this with me. J'ai froid. One more time. J'ai froid. Very good. Now we go to the next picture. You see a young boy who's all covered up in a jacket, and despite that wants to go and play in the water. Obviously, this water is going to be cold. What does his mother ask? Oscar, which is his name, Oscar. Tu n'as pas froid? Aren't you cold? Oscar, tu n'as pas froid? Oscar, aren't you cold? Oscar, tu n'as pas froid? I'm going to say this slowly. Oscar, tu n'as pas froid? Please say this with me. Oscar, tu n'as pas froid? And let's try to say this a little faster now. Oscar, tu n'as pas froid? Very good. You go to the next. You see a man who's all huddled up, seems to be wearing a coat and a hat. He is cold. He is feeling cold. Il a froid. Il a froid. Il a froid. Please say this with me. Il a froid. Il a froid. Very good. Now we come to the next picture. Elle n'a pas froid. She is not cold. Elle n'a pas froid. Please say this with me. Elle n'a pas froid. I'll say this again. Elle n'a pas froid. Now please say this with me one more time. Elle n'a pas froid. Elle n'a pas froid. Very good. Now we come to a bunch of people definitely feeling cold. Nous avons froid. Nous avons froid. We are cold. Nous avons froid. Please say this with me. Nous avons froid. Nous avons froid. One last time. Nous avons froid. Now we come to the next picture. Vous n'avez pas froid? You aren't cold? Vous n'avez pas froid? Vous n'avez pas froid. Vous n'avez pas froid. Okay, now please say with me. Vous n'avez pas froid. Vous n'avez pas froid. Vous n'avez pas froid. Here there will not be any intonation because there is no question mark at the end of it. This is a statement. So the correct way of reading it is Vous n'avez pas froid. Coming to the next slide, you see a bunch of people who are all wearing jackets and sweaters. Ils ont froid. They are cold. Ils ont froid. Ils ont froid. Please say this with me. Ils ont froid. I repeat. Ils ont froid. Ils ont froid. Coming to the next picture, you see a lot of people who are playing hockey. They are not wearing sweaters. They aren't cold. Ils n'ont pas froid. Ils n'ont pas froid. Ils n'ont pas froid. Let's say this slowly first. Ils n'ont pas froid. Say it again. Ils n'ont pas froid. Very good. Now try and say this with me a little faster. Ils n'ont pas froid. Ils n'ont pas froid. Very good. We come to the last slide, which will now recap everything that we have said. This is the last slide where we are now going to see what all we have learned so far. We have learned 4 expressions with the verb avoir. Avoir faim, to be hungry. Avoir soif, to be thirsty. Avoir chaud, to feel hot. And avoir froid, to feel cold. How did we conjugate these different expressions? By conjugating the verb avoir. Faim, soif, chaud, froid don't change in any of them. Thank you for today's lecture. We meet again for another lecture later on.